Hi everyone, it's Sarah from Sassy Reads, and today I'm talking about some of the books that I read in 2017. I have a list of the books, and I'm here to talk more. Okay, so first up we have Beast Made of Night by Tochi Onyebuchi. I have a review for this. Sadly, it was a DNF for me. I DNF'd at page 65, but I gave this 2 stars because what I read was pretty okay. Usually when I do DNF novels, I give them 2 stars just because, to me, if I'm stopping reading a book, it was okay, unless I absolutely hate it, which is very rare because sometimes I'll read those books all the way through for some reason. But yeah, I had such high hopes for Beast Made of Night. I thought I was really going to like it. I loved Akata Witch, and it's kind of on the same vein as Akata Witch, so I was like, oh my god, I'm going to love this one. But I could not connect to the characters. I couldn't connect to the world, and I'll talk more about it in my review, so like, go read that, because I feel like my review explains it more since I wrote it as I was deciding to DNF it, and I do feel a little bad DNFing it, because I really wanted to read it and like it, but it didn't capture me, and I'm not going to read something that isn't holding my attention because I have made that resolution of I just let it go. Then I read Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God by Jonathan Edwards. This was a reread for me because I have an American Lit class that I took last semester, and yeah, I did not like it. I actually hated it more upon rereading it, and I gave it 1 star. I can't stand Jonathan Edwards. I hated it. It's a horrible sermon. Like, it just gives Christianity a bad name, and do not recommend. Then I reread The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. Okay, so I gave this one 4.5 stars. I have a review for it. I'll link that down below. This is a novel I highly recommend. Reading it a second time really opened my eyes. It's fantastic. I even gave it to my dad, and my dad doesn't read, but it was the first book that he's ever finished, and he loved it. And I bought him another Tim O'Brien book for Christmas, and he finished it last night, so he loves Tim O'Brien and his storytelling. But this novel, man, it follows, it's like broken up into 2 parts, side A and side B, and side A focuses more on like the people around Tim O'Brien and this platoon, and then side B focuses on Tim O'Brien. But it's important to keep in mind that this Tim O'Brien is a fictionalized character, and it's not Tim O'Brien himself. We don't actually know who Tim O'Brien really is, because this is just Tim O'Brien's take on storytelling and how he is able to cope with the things that he witnessed in the Vietnam War. And I loved it. My favorite story is A Sweetheart of the Song Trebong. That one is my favorite. It follows a story being told. I think it's by Rat Kiley, and Rat Kiley's telling the story about how this boy flew his girlfriend out to Vietnam, and she became like this really cool Green Beret, and she was like a part of the jungle, and it's talking about like losing humanity and how Vietnam is able to really get its hold on people no matter who they are, and it's just fantastic. I highly recommend The Things They Carried. I think it's fantastic, and I'm so happy that I reread it because it's something that I liked, and I think I gave it like 3.5 stars originally, but 4.5 stars really is for me definite for this, because there are times where I couldn't get into the writing at certain points, but in other times I was so immersed into the writing, and there's so many great stories in here. I highly recommend it. Next up, I have Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bashordust. I gave this book 5 stars. This was fantastic. It's a Snow White retelling. It's LGBTQ+. It's really interesting. I highly recommend it. I didn't really care too much for the romance. I have a review for it, so I'll link it down below. That's because like I was more focused on the stepdaughter and stepmother relationship. I love that kind of relationship, and it was so nice to see this relationship portrayed outside of the usual fantasy fairy tale take, because usually in fairy tales and in retellings the stepmother is portrayed with such a horrific way. She's the evil one, and in this one she becomes evil by a misunderstanding, and even then she's not really ever evil, and it was so beautiful, and I can't recommend it enough. Like it's beautiful. Go read my review, gush about it with me if you've read it, because I just loved it. Next up, I read Young Goodman Brown by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I gave this one 4.25 stars. Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote The Scarlet Letter, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it was interesting to read a short story by him, also for my American Lit class, and I finally got to, like, read the whole thing. I've read, like, bits and pieces of it before, but, like, I get the references that are made in literature to the story now, so it's important to know what other authors are talking about, and now I do. Next up, I have Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. I gave this one 4.25 stars. I had to read this one for my lit class. I also read this one for my lit class. We started off with this one. It was a good one to start off with. Jhumpa Lahiri is a very interesting author. I think she is Indian American, so if I remember correctly. I didn't do too much research on her, but I really enjoyed this collection. It's got a bunch of stories in it. They span over so many different themes. Some of them I really loved, some of them I just found kind of mediocre, and some of them I really liked. Stories like Sexy and, what's that other one? Interpreter of Maladies. Those are, like, two of my favorites. I wrote a paper on it and got 100, so, like, I had a lot to say. And I just like the themes that she focuses on. She has this very interesting way of writing these very fleshed out scenes and characters that you can see in your head, and you feel like you're there almost. And it's a really interesting look into Indian culture and American Indian culture, not Native American, but Indian Americans who are born from Indian parents, but are not Native Americans, but American-born children. I am confusing myself by all this terminology. And so it's just really fascinating. There were some stories in here that I had wished that we read in class, because I feel like it would have been a really interesting discussion, and some that I wish we hadn't read in class, because we didn't have much to talk about. But this is a really interesting collection, and I really enjoyed it, and I am going to read another Jhumpa Lahiri short story collection, because I did really like Interpreter of Maladies, and I feel like this one is definitely just such a, like, quiet, immersive storytelling, and I like this kind of stuff. I'm not huge on it, but when I do read it, I usually quite enjoy it, and I'm really happy that I picked her up, because I feel like I never would have ever picked her up, even though I had heard of her before, and I'm quite happy that I finally got around to reading something by her, because she is a very wonderful writer, and I think very many people will love this. I mean, it won the Pulitzer, so obviously she has some merit. And so those are books that I read in 2017. My top two recommendations are Girls Made of Snow and Glass, Are the Things They Carry. Depending on what kind of reader you are, I think you'll enjoy both of them. I enjoyed both of them, and I'm a very wide reader, and so it just kind of depends on what's more your style, but Girls Made of Snow and Glass and The Things I Carried were wonderful. So let me know down below in the comments if you read any of these books, what you think about any of these books, and don't forget to subscribe, and happy reading. Bye!